I want to talk to you today about being stuck and getting unstuck and what that might mean for the future of Richmond, Indiana. I'm a creature of habit and routine, and some kinds of change come very hard for me. I get stuck when I don't know how to deal with a change, when I can't know in advance how it's going to turn out, when my routine gets thrown off. I decided I wanted to start jogging as a form of exercise. So what did I do first? Well, obviously I sat down to research the best armband for my iPhone, the best app for tracking my time and my pace and the calories burned. I bought running clothes for different weather conditions. I ordered ID tags for my shoes so that if something happened while I was out, they'd know it was me. I read articles online about how to run well. I looked up the best music for running. And only then, when I had all the right gear and equipment, did I venture out and start running. And that went fine until a day when the weather changed, or when I took a trip and wasn't familiar with the best running routes, or when I just didn't feel like it one day. I get stuck on exercise because I want it to be predictable and easy and safe. And I want to be really good at it right from the start. Instead of getting unstuck, though, sometimes I decide that that kind of exercise just isn't for me. I'll just find some other way later, another time, when something more predictable and comfortable comes along. It takes me a long time to make new friends. I enjoy in-depth conversations and getting to know people, and I like it when people take an interest in getting to know me. But then I start to worry that we might not become best friends. I worry that I might not be a good enough friend to the other person, or that they don't actually need me in their life, or that we might invest too much time and energy in building trust and vulnerability, only to find that it's not a good fit. I get stuck on making friends because I want it to be predictable and easy and safe, and I want to be really good at friendship right from the start. But instead of getting unstuck, sometimes I convince myself that I can go it alone, that friendship just isn't for me. I'll just wait until another time when it's more convenient and predictable. There are other ways that I get stuck, and the theme in all of them is that I want revolutionary change or no change at all. Incremental change, change that involves the gut-wrenching, iterative process of trying something new, seeing how it works, perhaps failing, perhaps not, refining it, and then trying something else, is too slow, too imperfect, too vulnerable, too unpredictable. And yet, when I think back on the times in my life, the moments and decisions that have led to the most life-giving and important changes in my own path, most of them are not revolutionary scenes that you would find in a blockbuster Hollywood movie script. Most of them were those small but powerful moments when I let myself be vulnerable to the possibility of failure, when I let myself be uncomfortable with what was happening so that I could see it through, when I put aside my self-doubt or my perfectionism and took action. Talking with my friend Mark, who I hadn't known for all that long, about what it would mean to start a website development business together, even though it could mean failure, financial loss, or worse. Acknowledging an attraction that had grown beyond the platonic, even though it could mean risking the friendship I'd built with an amazing woman. Listening to friends who told me I should run for political office, a potential worst nightmare for an introverted geek, and risking my reputation in a community where politics can be intensely polarizing. All of these moments held great vulnerability and were terrifying in their own way. Some of them were a success. The friendship became a relationship, and the relationship became a marriage. The startup idea became a business, and the business became a career. Some of these moments led to failure by some definition of the word. But each time I stretched myself, I learned about myself and how the world works, and I moved forward in my life. These were the moments where the magic happened. This is an image that I keep on my desk at home. I see it every day before I go out into the world, and I see it at night before going to bed. It reminds me of the good that can come from stepping outside of my comfort zone. It gives me some perspective. We all have different places where we get stuck. I might struggle with friends or with exercise, but if you want help thinking through a complex technical problem, I'm on it without hesitation. Some of us get stuck in a job that doesn't bring joy or speak to any deeper sense of calling. Some of us get stuck in a relationship or a marriage that holds us down. Some of us get stuck in a cycle of financial struggle and debt that just leads to more financial struggle and more debt. Some of us get stuck in friendships that do not nurture our best selves or ask us to put aside our own needs. Some of us get stuck in organizational meetings with endless minutiae on the agenda that keep us from facing our real challenges. Some of us get stuck not asking for help when we're learning something new. We all get stuck at one time or another. Every day, each of us is presented with choices about how we engage the world or how we contribute to life in the community where we live. Culturally, I think the little voices whispering in our ears when we're presented with these opportunities tell us to play it safe. They tell us not to rock the boat, not to risk vulnerability, not to pursue the uncertain. Go with what you know. If even just one person might be upset about a decision, you'd better avoid it. And so when we have conversations about the future of our community, I think many of us want them to be predictable and easy and safe. We want certainty about where Richmond is headed and how we can get there. Big ideas are fine as long as the outcome is clear and all the possible contingencies have been accounted for. When certainty isn't available or the path seems dangerous, we hold back. We avoid bold decisions. We use overly simplified measuring sticks, like how many jobs will that create, or how will that reduce crime? And since not having all the answers can be considered a sign of weakness, we trend toward asking smaller and simpler questions. We get stuck. This stuckness in my mind is mostly about fear. What do we fear? In those critical moments, in those crucial conversations about the future of the community, we fear being laughed at, being found to be weak or worthless. Maybe we fear squandering an opportunity. Maybe we fear that our idea or our thought isn't perfect or it isn't well formed enough. We fear being seen as too bold or too full of ourselves. We fear that someone will misunderstand. We fear that we could lose a friend or an ally. We fear that someone will be offended. We fear that the media will take the idea out of context. We fear that our truth isn't enough. When someone new joins my company, I have to remind myself that it will take a while for them to get used to the idea that it's okay to make mistakes there. When the norm for many places is for your boss to get upset with you, or worse, when you screw up, people I hire are sometimes thrown off to come into an environment where that doesn't happen. Eventually they see that our approach and our response to failure is about asking, how did that happen? And then, how can we prevent that from happening again? Instead of, you're a bad person. But the fear response is deeply ingrained and it can take a while to unlearn it. I don't know about you, but when I'm doing something creative that I know will be shared publicly, I often suffer from the phenomenon of having in mind the face of that one person who I know could react negatively to my ideas or my creation. And if I worry that person might not get it or might not like it, then I start to water down what I'm creating. I start to scale back my ambition, and I'm always in danger of abandoning the creative activity altogether. But when we put these fears in the context of our whole lives and the whole span of human existence, do they really matter? Do they really need to have that much power over us? I think it's helpful to ask ourselves, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen if I move past this fear and take this risk? Prolific writer and speaker Seth Godin was asked recently if he has any tricks for staying focused on his work. His answer was fear of wasting the opportunity. Fear of wasting the opportunity. I love the idea that the fear of missing out, of not living up to our potential, might outweigh the fear of taking a risk or not doing something perfectly. There are people all over the world who would die to give their children the quality of life that we enjoy in Richmond, Indiana. There are people who cannot imagine having the privileges that we have, let alone wasting the opportunity to make something good out of them. To think that I get stuck on voluntary activities like exercising or making friends is a joke compared to the kinds of involuntary stuckness that so many people face every day. Brené Brown says in her wonderful book, Daring Greatly, she says we should ask, what are the things worth doing even if we fail? Our lives are too short and too good to waste the opportunities we have. With limited time on the planet Earth, there are things worth doing even if we fail at them, even if we fail in big public ways. I don't want to die being remembered as that guy who had big plans. As hard as it might be to have this perspective in a moment of vulnerability, I would rather be remembered as the guy who tried something bold and failed. So what about Richmond? Do we want to be remembered as the city that was great for a while, fell into a funk, and had some big plans to get out of it? Do we want to be remembered as the city that waited patiently for the rest of the country and the world to do something about the decline of the dollar, the rise of energy prices, the impact of climate change? How do we avoid getting stuck? How do we get unstuck? I suggest we learn to let go of our fear of the unknown. We let go of our fear of trying something new and seeing how it feels before passing judgment on it. We let go of our fear of not having all of the answers. We move from having huge plans that don't go forward to enacting the changes that we can. It's okay if we try a new idea for improving Richmond and it doesn't work. The more ideas we try, the more we learn about ourselves and what will work. We know that many people and businesses have contributed to the current renaissance happening in Richmond's Depot district, but I do think we have to single out Roger Richert as a driving force in that story. Roger and his family took personal financial risks that have changed our city. He's invested in restoring and renovating buildings without any guarantees about when or whether they might get used. He's championed other people's businesses, not afraid that might draw away the attention of his customers, because he is betting that in the long run, it'll lead to a critical mass of activity. He's surely had failures along the way, deals that have fallen through, projects that have cost too much, visions that he couldn't quite make into a reality. But no one can say that Roger has held back on his ideas or plans because they didn't have a clear outcome. He's done quite the opposite. Even more importantly, he's made space for the rest of us to be involved in that conversation, to share in the risk and the rewards. I don't think you have to be wealthy to model what Roger Richert has done. We all have some part to play in letting go of fear and opening up to possibility, whether it's sharing an idea that isn't fully formed, speaking up for our point of view in a conversation that's crucial, or lending our time and our talents to a plan where the details might still need to be worked out. My personal work is still to make myself more vulnerable to the possibility of failure and the pain that might come with that. My work is to go for a run even when I don't have the perfect equipment or the best possible environment for it. My work is to enjoy the process of getting to know someone, even if I can't have a guarantee that deep friendship will result. For Richmond, my work is to be willing to risk looking like a fool as I continue to engage the best way I know how in the world of local business, politics, opinion, and community building. The very real question of Richmond's survival is not in the hands of the global economy or bureaucrats in Washington, nor does it hinge on any one employer, politician, or agency to help us find our way. Richmond's future is in the hand of the many people who are making a living together here today, and there isn't enough time in my life or yours to squander our opportunity to build something together. For our community then, let's ask ourselves, where am I stuck and how am I going to get unstuck? What opportunities might be on the other side of my discomfort? What are the things worth doing even if we fail? Thank you.